How can I hint to my job that I'd quit if they make me do something? I've been at my current job for about 10 years. It's not a bad job and I generally like it. They like me and I'm secure in my position. I live across the street from my office. I don't like long commutes and I'm paying a hefty premium to be able to live so close. They asked me recently to take on a temporary assignment where I'd be working directly for a client for a few months. At first we thought it'd be all remote, but the client recently asked if I could go in a few days a week. The office I'd be going to is over an hour from where I live. I do not want to waste 2 hours of my day commuting. Even if it's just 3 days a week. How can I tell them that I will find a new job if they make me do this? I don't want to come across as too aggressive. I can't afford to be unemployed. But I do want to strongly hint that if you want to keep me, you'll push back against the client on this. My last company once asked me to move to a different location. I told them they didn't have enough money to pay me to move there. Never spoke of it again. One company a long time ago asked me to take a different position I used to do but hated. I told them if that's all they had for me to go ahead and give me a pink slip. Unemployment papers. Never spoke of it again. The point? Don't hint. Just say it out loud. Just be direct. That's not something I will be able to do. I wouldn't feel comfortable commuting 2 hours a day for something I do not believe adds significant value. I am open to alternatives. Be direct but phrase it as an availability issue. When I agreed, it was due to the project being a remote assistance. Unfortunately, due to obligations, responsibilities in my personal life, I am unavailable for a commuting role, even if it's simply a part-time requirement. I relocated for this job and intentionally pay more to avoid a commute and cannot accommodate that change. Will your job pay your mileage and time to travel? As far as I would be concerned, you commute to your office and travel to the worksite on company time. Edit. I guess a not very subtle hint would be to demand mileage or a company car and pay for the travel time. If the client thinks they receive a benefit from you being at their office, then they can pay you for the commute time. Don't start any earlier or later the days they want you at their site. Say you have to stop at your office first and then you will head over. Then you are driving for work, not commuting, and need to be paid and reimbursed for mileage. This will cause you to need to have a conversation with your auto insurance though. The loss of several hours a day without additional compensation is not something that I'm willing to do. Don't threaten or hint at leaving. That's like giving an ultimatum in a relationship, and that won't endear them to you. Just say no. It can be construed as a change of condition of employment to change your work location. They would need to do a constructive dismissal where you be entitled to a severance. Mind you, that may all depend on the labor laws in your area. When I previously went on temporary assignments like you describe, I got the company to pay for a serviced apartment. I could have stayed in a hotel the entire time. But hotel life gets old very quickly. Have you talked to them about something like that? Your place of work is the office across the street from your house. You report to your office at the beginning of the day. Commute from the office to the customer location is done on business time. Travel cost from office to client location is business expense. You expense it or the company provides transportation. Ask questions. 1. How will mileage reimbursement be handled? Is that submitted directly to the client or to you? 2. This requires 2 hours of daily commuting. That only leaves 6 hours for the client each day I'm on site. Are they okay losing those 2 hours? Or would they prefer a remote solution instead? Hot tip: don't hint at anything. Just straight up tell them you don't want to do this. If they do, they better come with some temporary compensation for that extra work. If the conversation starts to get difficult, I'd suggest you start looking for another job. BTW. If you can't afford to lose your job, you pretty much have zero leverage over your employer. So hinting at quitting is pointless. They know you won't quit because you can't afford to. Since you'll be working at a client location, your travel will be billable. Walk to your office, clock in or whatever, and then travel to the client and count it as work time. You can't be forced to work extra time at an off-site location. My job asked me to cover a position 2 days a week an hour away. They paid for my mileage and the time traveling was on the clock. I ended up benefiting from the deal because I made LKKE $200 in mileage a day. You absolutely need to say no unless major concessions are made to accommodate it. Tell them you pay a premium for housing because you don't like to commute. If they can't make it worth your while, then you'll have to refuse. This is a pretty big deal they're asking you to do. Just tell them, it is a big ask. And if they want you to do this, make it clear that they either have to make it worth your while or come up with an alternative arrangement. Or a compromise. 1 day a week should be more than sufficient, and if the client wants you more often, they pay for an Uber or something. Tell them you want to be paid for time and fuel for the commute. Have them supply a rental car for the duration. Travel to and from while on the clock. No sense quitting over this. Odds are that a new job won't be right across the street, so you will be commuting on your time. Tell them you're on the clock when you start traveling and off when get back. If you have a 3-hour round trip, you're on the payroll for that journey. Clock in at the office across the street, then head to the second location. Also, maybe check your local working time directive laws. There is a chance that this may actually be covered as mandatory. I accepted this temporary assignment under the expectation that it would be remote. Now I've learned I'd need to commute several extra hours each week. And that will not be possible for me. Please see if the client can accommodate this position being remote, or someone else will need to fill that role other than me. A lot of people are trying to give you a workaround that involves higher pay or reimbursement for your commute, but I understand completely if the commute itself is a deal breaker. That's a lot of time to be driving even if it's paid. And the stress adds up. Just act stupid and ask how they will pay for the commute and such. Before you make your ultimatum or demand, do yourself a favor and send out some resumes and test the waters to see what's out there for you. And how easy would it be to find another job that you would find acceptable? Or you could finish out your temporary assignment and be thought of even more highly at your company. Who knows, this could lead to raise, promotion? Maybe while you are at this temporary assignment, that company tries to poach you from your current company with crazy money? Remember, bosses hate to be given ultimatums. I don't really hint. I just say, that's not something I'm prepared to do. An hour each way commute is more of my time than I would be willing to give up for this. Even on a temporary basis, I would be willing to consider doing this if there was either additional compensation for my commute to be completed outside of normal work hours, or if the client would be willing to supply a hotel room close to the job site and per diem on the nights before my shifts in their office. You definitely should get compensation for commuting to the customer, but you would still hate commuting every day. I would ask for a hotel and per diem. See if the client thinks it's worth that. Ask them to pay hourly your commute or do it in your working hours. Possibly ask to be paid for the commute time. Tell them you hate commuting so much that it's a huge burden on you to have to do it for any reason. But if they can't work out a remote arrangement or send someone else, then you need to be compensated specifically for the commute time which you do not want to do. I'm assuming that you like the job well enough that you'd like to keep it if it wasn't for this difficulty.